Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the members and the board of the Economic Club of Miami, I would like to welcome all of you to this speaker series that we have held for the past year on the future of Florida's economy. Our next speaker really needs no introduction. He is the total Floridian. He is a North Floridian who began his legal career in South Florida as a state attorney. He's a Navy veteran who's been stationed all over Latin America as well as in different parts of the state. He's a double gator and
sounds good. That's
set. And on top of that, for the last 8 years, served as the Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives, during whose tenure was described as the blockbuster session in the history of Florida politics. So more consequential legislation was passed in that 2-year session than in prior sessions across the state of Florida and in the history of the state of Florida. We will also have the privilege as well for Paul Renner to be interviewed by Miami Herald opinion editor, a member of the Miami Herald editorial board, and opinion editor, Mary Anna Mancuso, who has had a very broad and detailed career, both as a journalist and in some of the other areas of public affairs, from policy to politics. So we hope to really offer all of you an opportunity to listen to Paul's vision for the state of Florida and its economy, to listen to many of the questions that Mary Anna will be posing to him, and as well as many of the questions that you may have about the state of Florida, the state of its economy, and really the limitless potential that it has over the next generation to develop in a really amazing way. So thank you so much for your time, and let's get this conversation started.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Jeremy. And thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Candidate Paul Renner, I'm very excited to sit down and have this conversation with you. You are coming in behind Byron Donalds and David Jolly. And this August is the primary, and the primary seems to be heating up, right?
It is indeed.
It's getting very crowded. But Republican voters in August are going to have an opportunity to choose among candidates that seem to have all similar values.
You give me my
Okay.
girl. Just
Hold the mic.
hey.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, this August, Republican voters are going to choose among candidates with similar values, and they seem to have different emphasis on what they're doing and what their goals are for the governorship should they win. What distinguishes your candidacy and vision for Florida from your opponents?
Look, I think you would look at this as interviewing for the CEO of Florida, or differently stated, doing a big business deal, and you would do a lot of due diligence if it's a deal that is equivalent to whatever we are, the 15th largest economy in the world. That's a very, very critical leadership role, and you should have had some kind of leadership experience running a lemonade stand at least to be the governor of the state of Florida. And so I think there is a Grand Canyon gap between my background, and I'll share with you what that is, and all the other people in the race. So I spent 20 years in the military. I served in 2 wars, Operation Desert Storm, as a 23-year-old. That guy's age, that's what a 23-year-old looks like these days. When I was his age, he's part of the show. When I was his age, I was in the Northern Gulf, navigating through mine-infested waters and leading a group of men that were older than me. And then 20 years later, leading a bunch of men and women who were younger than me as a commander in the Navy, fighting to make sure, with an intelligence unit, to make sure we didn't have foreign fighters coming into Afghanistan to kill Americans. And so for my entire life, I've had positions of leadership under pressure, positions of trust that included a security clearance along the way for that 23-year period. got out of active duty. That was a period of active and reserve time. Went to the University of Florida Law School, was a prosecutor just up the road in Broward County. Again, was just selected to be a supervisor when I was a misdemeanor prosecutor. If a Dolphins player got arrested, that kind of thing, I had to handle those high-profile cases among my peer group that came in with me, and continued to be a lead in the felony trial unit. And then, of course, the Speaker of the House, 500 employees to hire and fire. You're the head football coach of the House of Representatives, in a sense, that you decide who's on what committee, subcommittee, who serves on the committees, what bills move, what bills die. And unlike some states where you have an elected majority leader, Speaker pro tem, these other leadership roles, and there's a little bit of diffuse power, the Speaker of the House runs it all. You pick everybody. So next to the governor is the single most influential, powerful position in state politics. And I think, so leadership experience, leadership results. You want to hire your CEO. He's had leadership, but has been good or bad results, right? If you've run companies into the ground or you haven't done a good job or delivered anything, then why would you hire him to be, or her to be, your next governor? So we had what just the governor last week called the most successful 2 years, he said, it of any state anywhere in history. I'll be more modest and say in any time in Florida history, legislatively. So what we call the free state of Florida, I was an architect of that with the governor, with my colleagues in the House and Senate, in driving that legislation, because as a veteran, as a guy stepping away from a decent job that paid well, I was not there for the nightlife. I was not there for anything else other than focusing on the mission. And as a veteran, that means getting rid of the ego, the arrogance, the politics in politics, and focusing on getting things done. And we can talk a little bit about what that is, but those two things, I think, just scream a Grand Canyon gap between the other candidates. I'll also say that we're putting a Florida First vision in place, whether it's on affordability, whether it's on, you name it, public safety. We've rolled out some things there that the other candidates are simply talking about national issues. They're not talking about issues that pertain to what happens right here in the state of Florida. I'm not running for anything else. I'm not looking for an angle. I'm looking to be the best governor that Florida's ever had.
Wonderful. Well, you're talking about your Florida First affordability agenda. And if you had to prioritize one, property taxes, insurance reform, or utility costs, which do you view as delivering the biggest relief the fastest, and why?
I would probably, if I had a magic wand, and you know, there's levers you can pull, and I can't control grocery prices. Apparently, Zoran Mondami can, but I don't have that magic power as a conservative, and so I would work on insurance, frankly, because I think it covers so much in all lines. But let's talk about what we did. So the other difference is I'm not a candidate. You know, there's campaign conservatives and there's people that actually shown up and delivered results. I'm a less talk, more action guy, even though I'm talking here now with a microphone. We got after litigation abuse. Florida was considered a litigation hellhole. We had 7 or 8% of the population in homeowners claims that are filed. 76% of every lawsuit in America for homeowners came right out of this state. So we just had too many, and I'm a checks and balances guy. I don't want to take away the plaintiff's, toolbox completely and give it to the insurers. I want to focus on the consumer. So we took away the litigation abuse. We held insurers accountable, making them adjust claims faster, greater penalties if they show a pattern or practice of not paying claims timely, these kinds of things. So I've already gone down this path on insurance. We've seen, I think there was 100 filings to keep property even or reduction. We've seen people, I don't personally, my premiums have not gone down. Actually, my rates went down. This is interesting. My rates went down, but my premium went up. Why? Because of the valuation. Now I've got more coverage because it is what it is. So we've gotten it in a better spot is the bottom line. We're not seeing people going out of business. We're seeing improvements. There's more we can do. Regulatory standpoint, I think we can bring down rates 10% on insurance, on property insurance. Look at auto real quickly. Is there you see huge success where we did big tort reform in the main session that I led, and you see Progressive down 15%, State Farm down 20%. They're not going down anywhere in the country, but right here. And that's a result of what I already did. So if you want a guy to fix tomorrow's problems, you go to a guy that fixed yesterday's problems. And so I get after insurance. After that, property taxes, that's a lever we can pull. I've suggested a rollback to go back to 2024 levels for everybody. Business, renters, homestead, not everybody. So you pull out your 2024 bill and that's what you'd pay. That takes care of the 2 tax increases we had in 25 and 26 while we've been talking about it, and gets you back to a place that is both material for citizens that are, all of us that are paying taxes, but also manageable by local governments. Because the objection is, and it's not a legitimate one, is that is the main funder of cops, firefighters, schools, infrastructure, some kind of important essential services at the local level. But going back just to 2024 will give material relief without it still be manageable for local governments while we pursue more bold reforms. And we can talk about some ideas.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up insurance because, as you know, Florida has enacted multiple insurance reforms, yet premiums remain high, as you point out, especially here in South Florida. I had to insure my car in Miami, and I don't even want to tell you what I'm paying per month. It's a little offensive. So what's missing from this current approach, and what do you think you would be able to do differently as governor?
Well, differently is, again, in the package, both the main tort reform package as well as the property insurance package, the things that were in that were tried over and over again, and then sometimes not tried because you had a presiding officer that just didn't want to, they wanted to take care of a special interest, whether it was the insurers or it was the plaintiffs' lawyers. And I believe, because I've proven it, I don't have to speculate about it, that because of my mission focus, because of my background in leadership, because I've delivered results, I'll deliver them again. I know the incoming presiding officer, Sam Garrison, Jim Boyd, House and Senate. I will start on day one. There's nothing against Congressman Donalds, who's been in D.C., but I know these people. I have a great working relationship with them, and we will get in a room and we'll figure out how to get this done to continue pushing down insurance costs. Home hardening is a big one. My Safe Florida Home, continuing to fund that at a high level. So if you have an older pre-Andrew home, it can save as much as $1,000 or more. The commission, one of the data points I got from the commissioner is 60 to 70% savings in some cases where you have a really old home that needs windows, roof ties, this kind of stuff. So it's a real game changer. And you can say, well, why are we giving, and it's a $10,000 match, home $700,000 or less. Why are we giving this guy money? What about the rest of us? And is that, a good, but what it does in the aggregate as we do this, and people, it's always oversubscribed. We put 200 million in there and it's gone. Is in the aggregate, now we're talking about when hurricanes come, those $100,000 claims are now $20,000 claims. And in the aggregate, that really does move the needle in terms of the effect on rates going forward. I think you're going to see a real positive turn in reinsurance after this hurricane season. So good news is ahead. I don't think the benefits of those reforms have yet been realized because, remember, they went out and filed over 200,000 lawsuits on the eve of the governor signing the bill that I championed. And so those are still kind of like the egg moving through the snake. And when those go through and we have all new claims under the new rules, we're still seeing the benefit of that reform in our insurance market. But we can do the home hardening and also some regulatory tweaks that I believe can allow us for greater competition. And we're having a good conversation about housing earlier. There's things that you can do that are creative and smart that people just haven't tried. And I'm going to go out and find smart people that are smarter than me to give me that advice, and we're going to make it happen.
Well, I'm glad you brought up housing because, as I'm sure you've noticed, there's been a lot of talk about eliminating our property taxes here in Florida that has some people a little concerned because how are we going to do that? So it seems to be the biggest pressure currently facing Florida homeowners. And you support a property tax relief, which I'm aware of based on your campaign and what I've noticed and read about. Do you favor elimination, and how do you want to restructure this? What do you think should be done? Should this be a homestead exemption? What do you think needs to be done when it comes to property taxes? Because right now the legislature is looking at over 20 proposals alone this session right now.
Yeah. And the reason I landed the rollback is just mechanically for a higher exemption or eliminating homestead property taxes, it must be done in the state constitution, which requires a supermajority of House and Senate this year to put something they can agree on. And the year and a half, they haven't agreed on anything. The governor is working on a plan for elimination of all homestead property taxes. I don't know whether this legislature that's been fighting with the governor, or at least the House has been fighting with the governor, and the governor's been fighting with the House, I guess the speaker would say, that they're going to get to an agreement on a proposal to put on the ballot in the first place. But let's say they do, then it's got to get to 60%. And if it cuts deep enough, you will have sheriffs who are staying quiet now, firefighters, teachers, local officials come out and say, this is a terrible idea, kill it. What we saw when we tried to put up a $25,000 exemption, which sounds like nothing in this conversation, League of Cities comes out against it. Democrat Party comes out against it. And if you don't raise money in campaign to make it happen, it never gets to 60%. So there's a real possibility that is well north of zero, and I think it may be north of 50%. And I want to be positive, and I hope something bold can happen. That's why I came up with the rollback. Is like, guys, we can do this in 2 days. This is not a big, beautiful bill. I've been there. I know exactly what this is. A short legislative piece that can be done in literally 2 days of legislative time that gives immediate relief. Had it been done when I called for it last November, it could have been put in escrow statements so that people got immediate money in their pocket. You got to think creatively. You got to be a leader who actually cares about getting after these problems and not talking it to death. And that's what they're doing. They're talking it to death. They don't have a single plan yet. The House is, in fairness to the House, they've actually got plans that are moving through. The Senate, I don't think, has moved on anything yet. And so they need to do the people's business, and they can start right now. It's not an either or. They can do both, but they need to do the rollback and then have that larger conversation.
And how critics argue that if we eliminate property tax in any fashion, what's going to happen is our local services, as you mentioned, are going to suffer. In order to make up the difference, we'd have to double the sales tax. How do you kind of split the baby on that and ensure that doesn't take place?
I don't think the governor's talking about eliminating all property taxes. Homestead is around the third-ish. And depending on where you are in Miami, city of Miami, it's probably, I think it's 7 or 8%. I don't think it's a lot. You could probably do that without any tax replacement at all on homestead. So it's really more the actions on homestead. If you eliminated all property taxes, you're talking about replacement taxes that would really cause the economy to suffer. Homestead it's doable. There's ways to do it, but you would have to have at least, I believe, some replacement, not full replacement, but some replacement. My plan calls for a 2/3 vote at the local level, like we put on ourselves in the Constitution, because the reality is that the local governments have seen a huge windfall, more than 50% increase in the last 4 or 5 years, double the rate of incomes. And fundamentally, as a conservative, I believe that government should never grow faster than our incomes can afford. Period. Full stop. That's it. Okay. And that's where I come down on it. And so that rollback to 2024 is not enough. Let me just say that right out front. I would go much farther than that, but that's a starting point to give people some immediate relief. So I'm let me go back to your question. I think I just maybe lost my place there for a minute on the point I wanted to make. But go back to your question and maybe it'll jog it.
My 12th point was that critics argue if we'll do any type of property tax.
Yep. So yes, and then the 2/3 is where I was headed, and I want a referendum on the back end of that. So if you got a local government that wants to spend every single dollar that comes in. I won't mention Broward local government, but if you were in Broward and they're going to take every penny they can and then say they need more, that the voters have a fail-safe at the next election to say thumbs up, thumbs down. Now in Seminole County, I met with a chair there, and they just passed a tax increase, and they went to a referendum, 73%, 72, something like that, historic vote in favor of that by the voters. Okay, if you want to do that, good on you, and that's what you want. You want more services or whatever that's paying for. We have that little safety valve, but I want to make sure that there's a guardrails, because you can't have it where you eliminate homestead and then the local governments just say, that's fine. We'll just shift the tax burden over to businesses. We'll just shift the tax burden over to people who are renting and hoping to own a home. Where's Brett? Back to my prop for the evening. Brett Biddle just graduated from University of Florida, and his colleagues, listen to this. This is not happy. It's not funny. Don't believe they will ever own a home. Ever own a home. We talked about housing affordability a little bit earlier. If conservatives and Republicans do not have a free market answer to housing, get ready for more Zoran Mondamis, including in the state of Florida, because you have to have a solution. And if kids are desperate, they think the American dream is closed to them, they will pursue the false promise of socialism. It's just too irresistible. And so I will push back against that, but I will come up with savings in insurance. I will save money on property tax, on electric bills, on health care. We're going to keep in-state tuition fixed. I've got an affordability plan on our website that is comprehensive, and it's only in the beginning because there's a lot of smart people in this room that have already given me ideas about how we can go farther.
Well, I'm glad you talked about the American dream, because at the Economic Club of Miami, one of the things they believe in is keeping the American dream within reach of everyone here. And as you are noting, it seems like it's slipping away, specifically for Brett and his friends, unfortunately, as well as my generation. So when we think about that and we think about being able to buy houses and have that American dream, Miami has seen a lot of capital, we've seen a lot of talent, but the soaring housing prices and the insurance costs, what kind of ideas do you have or policies you want to implement as governor to help bring that down for high-cost metro areas such as Miami?
Well, it's all the things I mentioned, and I was just having a conversation before we started about financing mechanisms that could save money and instantly show some improvement in housing costs. Of course, being a history major and only understanding about a tenth of what we talked about, I nodded my head and smiled. But it's about getting smart people in the room that know the business, and there is, I guarantee you, there's low-hanging fruit here, and we'll identify what that low-hanging fruit is, and we'll implement it. I will tell you, Florida has led, and it's a sad state, sad comment on the rest of the states, but Florida has led on so many issues for the rest of the country and other states. And my colleagues, when I was speaker, would say, hey, what's Florida doing on educational freedom? What's Florida doing on this? And they're kind of waiting on us to, figure it out and kind of lead the pack. And we'll continue to lead the pack. I'm really proud of that. I'm proud that we were just voted number one in educational freedom. I was on the board of governors, and we were, I think, 9 years running number one in higher education, in part because we've held costs low. That's another way that we can help first-time home buyers, people that are coming out of college, not with hundreds of thousands of debt, but a really, really good deal at some pretty good universities here in Florida.
Wonderful. Well, I want to switch gears and I want to talk about just financial capital. Florida has been booming for business. It's a great place to do business. It's a great place to live, work, and play. Now, from your perspective, what does Florida need to do to sustain that momentum, and what could derail it if it doesn't do it?
We have balanced our budget, and we have a balanced budget requirement. Balanced our budget during my time as speaker. We had record tax relief. We have AAA credit rating, and we took our debt, which is not great, our state debt, and actually paid some of it down in advance. Let's just say no one will ever confuse us for the federal government. But when we are the cheapest state government next to New Hampshire, keep that. That's rule number one. And so think about COVID. We had all this money that came in. If you remember, the way they did the formula was if you were a hot mess of governance like California or New York, and you had high unemployment, if your economy was a wreck, basically, with Biden, it was your blue states got more money than Florida did on a per capita basis. That's a fact. So I always say we got more than we needed and less than we deserved from that whole deal of printing money and borrowing it from the Chinese. And what did California do? They thought, well, here's some one-time money. We got this infusion of one-time money. Let's do this. Let's set up some new programs and hire a bunch of new state workers that we'll have to pay in perpetuity. And they had a $60-some billion deficit just a couple years in. What did we do? We took it and put it into big capital projects like roads and ports and airports and the wildlife corridor, environmental infrastructure to make sure we have clean water in our state. That's important to me as a conservative. And all that goes to say that we're resilient. So the way we don't screw it up is keep spending in check, keep doing what we're doing, treat other people's money as if your grandma's money, not your spending money in college that some politicians do. And when you do that and we hit a recession, we bounce back. We have a hurricane, $1 billion of recovery. Oh my God, we're going to have to fire teachers. No, we have $12 billion in reserves. There you go. I mean, I want to spend $1 billion, but we didn't hit a speed bump. When we had, and when I was speaker, we had, it wasn't Ian, it was, I'm going to have a Rick Perry moment here, but we had two major storms whose names are now escaping me, but they were very nasty. And in succession, major damage didn't phase us because we put money aside and we govern that way, and we'll continue to govern that way when I'm speaker, when I'm governor, and we're going to pay off our state debt. I know that's the governor's goal, is to get to half of that. We're going to finish it. We haven't bonded in quite some time. And what that allows us to do then is have more free cash flow to go into all these things that are very costly and need to be done for the 20, 30-year time horizon.
Sounds like you've got it all figured out.
No, I don't.
Well, Miami is a gateway. It's America's gateway to Latin America, as I'm sure you know. And as governor, how would you strengthen Florida's economic and trade relationships with the countries in that region? And where do you see the greatest opportunity for growth?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this question. So another bit about my background, and I'll answer the question is, while I was in the reserves, you do the weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. I was in a unit that the support of the Unitas cruise that Kennedy started in the 60s. It's part military exercises underway. The Navy ships circumnavigate South America, but it's also a goodwill building. So we do it. The Navy band comes, sings in English and Spanish. We do community relations projects. We'll fix an orphanage. We'll give away medical supplies after a hurricane, all these things. So it's a great program. But the point of it all is that I've traveled for 6 or 7 years throughout Latin America. I lived in Venezuela for a while, for 6 months with a family, learning Spanish. My wife's Colombian. I speak, in my opinion, fair Spanish. My wife's like, oh my God, I have, the accent, my ears are bleeding, but I can get through an interview. I've done interviews, doing one tomorrow in Spanish. So it's sometimes bumpy, but I can speak the language. And so the point of all that is there's nobody in this race, Democrat or Republican, that one understands the issues, that knows that we need to claw back influence from China and Latin America, that sees more opportunity and is going to seize on that opportunity than Paul Renner. When I'm governor, and that means in a free Venezuela and a new Venezuela, we're gonna leverage those opportunities to the benefit of those countries in a relationship of mutual respect and common values and mutual prosperity. But it's going to be a boon to the state of Florida and a real boon to the city of Miami and Miami-Dade, because this should be, if it's not already, I think it is, but it should be the undisputed capital of the Americas right here where we're sitting. And when I'm governor, it will be.
Do you believe that Florida should pursue more formal economic partnerships or trade missions independent of Washington? And where do you see the greatest opportunity? You mentioned Venezuela. Are there other countries that are on your mind?
Yes. Again, given long-winded answers, I would say yes. I can give more, but look, Latin America for sure. And this issue with China is a very serious one. It's a national security issue. They're using debt financing. Oh, you can't pay your debt, we'll take your port. Oh, you can't do that, we'll take your land. And we're going to be asleep at the wheel. This is a challenge of a free society, and I'm all for a free society against a totalitarian regime that has a multi-generational plan to conquer the world and put a chokehold on us. We cannot let our enemies get a foothold, and they have more than a foothold right now in the Americas. We need to claw that back with, not only onshoring from China, but nearshoring with our partners in Latin America who share a common Western worldview, who believe in freedom. For all the differences, there's so much more in common that we have with any country in Latin America than the Chinese. And so we have to do that. But also Europe, I would look as governor, I would say, okay, who are our major trading partners? The governor's taken trips to Israel, and that's been productive. He's taken trips to Italy. That's been productive. And we'll continue that. And I think that's important. And we can continue to leverage these amazing resources and the amazing tax and regulatory scheme that we have here in Florida. And we talked a little bit about the gravitational pull that's happening with private equity, with all kinds of investment that's coming into our state and will continue. That means don't screw it up. Just keep on the course you're going, encourage that to continue to happen. And when we do that, we will see just a burst of prosperity, which will lead to human thriving, which, to your point about affordability, the key to the affordability problem is better jobs, higher wages, right? Is letting those incomes catch up with prices. And please call your congressmen and senators and say, stop printing money. Stop devaluing our dollars. We're doing our best to go out and work hard and create wealth, and you're devaluing it. This is a man-made problem that needs to stop.
Well, you talked about China as a problem in the region of Latin America. Right now, we're kind of in an arms race of sorts with artificial intelligence, which I'm sure you're aware of. I know when you were in the House, you were supportive of a bill for social media protections and parental guidelines of children on social media. Now, as we're seeing artificial intelligence, it's beginning to take shape. It's in our content, it's in our markets, and children are having it for online experiences. When you think about the role Florida should play, if you think it should, do you think that there should be a way to set in guardrails in place, a way to win this race without stifling innovation? How do you think you'll be able to tackle that?
I think you separate kids from all the things that AI can do for us in healthcare and a lot of different areas, and add to AI quantum technology. And again, I'm the history major talking, so I know enough to be in a lot of trouble real fast. But getting to that, and the brief we got on the Board of Governors was whoever gets to Q Day, they call it, whoever gets to that quantum technology first, which is well beyond AI in terms of its power. And my understanding is if China got there first, they could shut off any encrypted system like that. So to say the least, this is a national security. It's not an arms race. It's a technology race, but it goes in the same direction to our national security. Same is true for AI. We're not going to shut off AI. We've got to pursue it. We got to win it. We do that. Free people, free markets are going to win that hopefully 10 times out of 10. And then with kids, yes, we have to protect kids because while a 16-year-old has better reflexes than I do, there's a reason why we don't let them drive at age 6 until 16 because their judgment's not as good as mine. And so not as good as yours. And so we need to make sure we have parental opt-in on some of this stuff. AI should never be your son or daughter's boyfriend, girlfriend, father, mother, God, oracle. It's dangerous. It's soulless in that respect. And it cannot give your child life advice. And you've seen some children that have gone down a deep, dark path, even to suicide with AI. AI is morally neutral. It's a machine talking to a kid. A machine can't give your kid life advice. And so that's where I get really concerned about protecting our children. AI and the power, I use it all the time. We all use it for travel advice or whatever, and it's going to be powerful for healthcare diagnoses and a lot of things that are going to really make our lives better, but we have to protect kids.
And how are you going to govern using like this emergent technology? We're seeing that businesses are using it. And in Miami, it's a magnet for fintech leaders and technology hubs. We just saw that we're going to become the Wall Street of the South. And there's been a lot of talk of that. How do you see that we can do this without repeating some regulatory mistakes that we've seen other cities make? New York, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, don't overreact. And so, again, it's like, take Obamacare. The error there was not in trying to help the uninsured. The error was reforming everyone to help the uninsured. And when I say reform, I put that in air quotes as a Republican because I think it's been a failure. Same thing with AI. Regulate to protect children, regulate to protect from manipulation in the political world where you say, man, Renner was a really nice guy. I didn't realize he was on TV, spouting this horrible, diatribe. I thought he was a good guy because it's not really me. It's an AI version of me on the eve of the election. We have to be careful about that. I mean, if we want a democracy, we have to be careful about that. So don't overregulate by regulating the whole to protect the handful that need to be protected is where I would go with AI. And specifically, with parents, parental opt-in, AI should not collect information on a minor and retain that from the schools. That should not come home with you. If it's going to be in schools, it stays in schools. Those kinds of protections will allow for the power of AI, the help that AI can bring without some of the unintended and very negative consequences for kids.
And, as you served as Speaker of the House, you have a lot of leadership experience. When you see yourself as the governor of Florida, do you see yourself as a continuation of the DeSantis legacy, or will you be separating yourself? And what things do you want to take care of within the first 100 days in the office?
We're all different. The governor and I philosophically agree on many, many things. We, obviously we all have a different tone, a different manner, a different way of delivering, but the governor and I obviously work very, very well together, and you can't separate his legacy from mine because we were arm in arm on that. So if you like Florida, you're going to continue to like Florida under Governor Renner. You're not going to see some sea change in policy. But there's more work to do. We've talked about some issues tonight. There will be issues that are not in front of us today. We didn't know about COVID in 2018. I mentioned quantum technology, which I don't fully understand. I just know it's really, really important and it's coming. I will tell you, I think that it was really important that we elected somebody who was ready for leadership on day one. And I go back to where I started, this is not, a tryout for leadership in this race. And you have to do your due diligence. And I believe that the challenges ahead are as great or greater in the next 8 years as they are in the last 8. And we didn't know COVID was coming, but I do think that. And that is both a challenge and a threat as well as an opportunity. And you better have somebody at the helm who will assemble the smart people, make mature decisions, listen to all sides, and execute in a way that doesn't cause problems.
And I've got one question left, and then we're going to go to the audience Q&A. Looking ahead, 10, 20 years from now, what does success look like for you in Florida? And what would failure look like if the wrong choices were made now?
Let me list 4 things. We have a safe community. As a prosecutor, and I put out our public safety agenda. I want to not disrupt human trafficking of minors, or all human trafficking, but of minors, but destroy it. I'm going to go after that with abandon. As a former prosecutor, it's a funding issue, but a safe community. Every human thriving begins with safety. Look at it in Jacksonville. I lived in an old bungalow that was in a nice area called Avondale. You go about 2 miles across I-10 in a bad neighborhood, maybe the same architect from 100 years ago that built a bungalow, and it's worth 1/10 of what my house is because public safety. Public safety, so it's a safe state. It's a safe state for kids. It's a safe state for everybody. Number one, it is a more affordable place where that guy, people coming out of college feel that they can stay in Florida and find opportunity. Number two, I would say infrastructure, that we are ahead of schedule, not behind schedule. It is very important because politicians get caught up in the expediency of today and the fake. I've done it. I've done the fake check signing of the big check that we all do, the smile and look, we brought money for the Boys and Girls Club or whatever. It's important. But looking ahead 30 years beyond my term as governor and caring a bit. I care a lot about what happens 30 years from now. That means you invest today. And, there's the old parable about the guy that's planting trees. I think it's a Jewish parable. He's planting fruit trees, and somebody says, why are you doing this? It's a waste of time. This tree will never bear fruit in your lifetime. But the people that planted trees for me, that's what we have to do. And continue to, there's freedom is the last thing I was going to say, man. I'm sorry, I got 3 hours of sleep last night. We got in at 1:30 this morning. Freedom. And that means educational freedom, health freedom. It means First Amendment freedom. I don't know if you saw this video in Miami Beach. It's right here. Somebody being harangued over a text message or whatever. I mean, hey, I'm a very conservative guy, but I'm going to tell you as a veteran, you have every right to totally reject everything I believe in and shout it from the housetops. That is your right as an American. I will defend it to the death. So we're going to keep the state free. We're going to continue to be the role model for the rest of the country. If everybody else goes left, we're going right. We're going right to where America stays as the great country that it is. We are celebrating 250 years. Just keep doing the things that work. Why in the world, and when we have this great template as the freest, strongest, most prosperous country on earth, would we in any way listen to the siren song of socialism that has never worked anywhere it's been tried? It has always led to 3 things: poverty, then prison for dissidents, and then death for those dissidents. Never going to happen in Florida on my watch, I promise you.
Thank you. And I think now we'll take some questions, sir.
Sure. Thank you very much for answering the questions. Right now, Florida loses billions of dollars because companies choose to incorporate in Delaware. Shouldn't Florida modernize its registry so that liable companies will be actually first bring the companies in Florida? And second question, please. The State Board of Administration manages over $250 billion.
Who does?
The State Board of Administration manages over $250 billion in pension assets.
Okay, yeah.
Much of that capital is sent to New York and California. Why are we paying fees to our state competitors instead of using the capital to build our own financial infrastructure and create jobs in Florida?
Would you like to work in my administration? Of course. The answer to the first question is yes. That seems like low-hanging fruit. I don't know why that's happening, but it seems like a simple solution, and we should do it. We should be always the easiest place to start a business and for anyone, a business to one. And so incorporation, absolutely. With respect to the SBA, I fought hard against ESG, and there may be people in the audience that think that's a good idea. I think it's a terrible idea. We've got to let financial markets do financial things and make decisions based on credit, objective credit stuff and the criteria, and not based on political considerations, liberal or conservative. And so with respect to your question, though, is why wouldn't we bring it here? Yes, let's bring it here. To me, I mean, those are just obvious things. Like when you ask the question, like, yeah, good point. Why aren't we doing that? Absolutely. Thank you.
Like a lot where I heard to see you, but I wanted to come back to one issue. Governor DeSantis is very big on exempting homestead property from real estate taxes. Primary residence, homestead property. I'm a father, 3 adult kids in their 20s. Again, the affordability issue. It's more than that. Governor DeSantis says he is just dedicated to doing this, and you seem to get kind of tepid response. We'll roll back, and maybe we can do more. I think this issue is huge, and it's not just the fact that they don't have to pay taxes. The young people about the house up in the fort, people who owned homes for any length of time, it capped at 3%. So if they move potentially with a downside and over and their property tax bill will double, triple, quadruple. So the market's stuck because of that. And people my age, if I were to downsize now, my tax bill would go 5 times. So I think it would bring fluidity to the market and just help in so many ways. You say you're in favor of free market. I think this is a huge free market proposal. Governor Ron is all in for it, but he's not the governor anymore. And it just seemed like you were hesitant on that issue. I want the next governor to be as strong as Ron DeSantis is on that issue.
Yeah.
Let me hear your comment.
Well, I obviously blew that response because I'm not tepid on the topic. So I've got a proposal that's on writing, which includes elimination of homestead property taxes, but it's more of a, what can we do right now as a rollback? That then I can call that tepid, but I want to guarantee that people have relief right this minute.
Right? Is there's so many proposals. I think some people are supporting the NEM only. We need one proposal. Okay, at 60%. For a proposal that says there's no tax on homestead property in the state of Florida, you're going to get 90%. But if you had 20 or 10 or even 5 bills that confuse people, then you're not going to get there. I think that's, I think there may be some Republicans who really don't want that to pass. And the way they get it not to pass is they say they're in favor. And that there's multiple proposals that really sabotage the effort. Where do you fall?
I agree with the governor on that. There's got to be one proposal. It's got to be understandable. It's got to be workable to get to 60%, and I'm for it. So I'm not tepid at all on property tax reform because it has, again, gone up double our incomes over the last 4 or 5 years. My initial, what I want to do as a leader is if we can guarantee progress today, why wouldn't we do that? Why are we going to wait until November and then that's not going to be in your tax bill until next year, right? And we don't know whether they're going to get along and have a single proposal. We don't know that at the end of the day that whatever they put up, the governor may say that's a terrible proposal. I'm not going to support it. And then where are we? We're going to go into 2027 and have our taxes go up again. So the rollback is not intended to be tepid. It's a first step. It's not a last step. And that's where I should have maybe started to be clear. I'm not tepid at all on it. I want to see major reform. I will support, I haven't seen the plan yet from the governor. I will support a plan that will do exactly what he's proposing because I agree with him. Is the problem with property taxes, one, you pay off your mortgage, you still own your home, you're still paying this forever and ever and ever. And secondly, what happens if you get sick, lose your job? With sales tax, I can just say, I'm not going to buy that car right now. I'm not going to go on vacation right now. I'm not going to do things that incur a sales tax. With property tax, they don't care. They want every penny, whether you're having your best year ever or your worst year ever. And so from a fairness standpoint, I don't like the property tax. I would not start if we were whiteboarding with a property tax as a way to generate revenue because I think it is all those things. It's unfair. So I am very enthusiastic, very not tepid about property tax reform. And when the governor comes up with that proposal, hopefully with the legislature, I hope to support it. I'm just saying, let's guarantee some success right now. And you can do that in 2 days while you put something on the ballot.
One final comment on that issue. In terms of it affecting services, I think I've heard the governor said 10% DOGE would more than cover the homestead exemption of homestead property only. You agree with that? Is there going to be progress made on DOGE and the local level?
Maybe the amount is roughly 1/3 of all property taxes. And so maybe, I don't know if it's 10% or 15%. Here's what I know. There's money to be found. And the first thing that every government should do is cut spending or find ways to reduce duplication. This is an area for AI. I got this question earlier this morning is let's use AI to find out, and I'll do this for the state too. Can we reduce some duplication, free up that money, reduce that, send it back in tax relief? So yes, the government should start with that. I don't know if the number is 10% or 15%, but I'm with the governor on the idea. The first place you start is government cuts spending and only does what is in that bullseye, that archer's bullseye, do those things like come and help me when I call 911. Let's start there, right? And teach my kids, pave the roads. When you start getting into all this, feel-good stuff and everybody's good idea mandates a taxpayer-funded program, I am not on board with that. So we talked about Milton Friedman. I'm more of a, what is essential for government? And if it's not, why are we doing it? Why is government doing this at all? If you do that, I do believe, and I'm certain that in some cities, you can absolutely do that and never look at any kind of tax replacement for police, fire, and all these essential services. It depends on the county. Some counties are very dependent on this, rural counties especially, that they're already at their cap. So the governor's talked about supporting them from the state. So there's a lot of moving parts. I'm not tepid on it. I'm very much interested in a bold reform of property taxes, but just starting with something that can guarantee us a win for right now. Thanks for yeah.
So one of the probably most controversial cabinet member in the DeSantis administration, at least in my view, is the head of our Department of Health. Many in the medical community have serious issues with his running of the department, coming heads of pediatric organizations, medical organizations. Will you keep the current head of the Department of Health? And what is your view in terms of what he has done? And would you change that?
Well, I'm probably going to disappoint you. I've not certainly made any commitment to anyone to keep anyone. And a new governor has every right to find the best man or woman for the job, and that's exactly what I'll do. But I do believe in medical freedom. I've got a medical freedom proposal. In this sense, and the governor and the first lady just rolled out this testing of infant formula that Ladapo, you're talking about Ladapo, Surgeon General. And I compliment him for it. I think it's fantastic because they're finding in infant formula levels of arsenic and things that are toxic above acceptable levels. Why haven't we figured that out already? I mean, I'm an old dad. I got a 5 and a 3-year-old. I'm not real happy about that. And, my wife breastfed for a while, but she did formula like probably many women in this room. And, I sure would have liked to have known that had those kinds of levels and which products did. So I think health freedom and where he's going, and I don't know that I agree with absolutely everything that's ever come out of his mouth because I haven't followed him that much, to be candid with you. But I do believe in medical freedom. For example, I do not believe that doctors should not treat someone because they don't get a COVID vaccine for a kid. I do believe we need to get this garbage food, ultra-processed food, and this stuff out of our kids' all of our diets. We have things in America that have been banned in Europe for years and years and years. And so I'm very much on the medical freedom MAHA side of things when it comes to a lot of what Ladapo has done. I think is I would praise. I just don't know, sir, whether everything because I haven't followed him that much, whether everything he said, I would say I agree 100% with him. I know I agree with the governor on just about everything. I think we're very similar philosophically. That's been his Surgeon General. I can tell you, and again, I may disappoint you, if it weren't Ladapo, it would be somebody that was very strong and very, very committed to letting science take us wherever we go. And that's what I would want to do. And the issues of informed consent and science, I want to make sure that we're not just hand saluting things that we've been doing for a long, long time that may not be quite right. And then let free people make a decision. Your decision may be different than mine, and that's okay.
For us less informed primary voters, how would you say you differ most in policy and priority with Byron Donalds?
Well, I mentioned leadership experience. I've given you mine. I won't repeat it. You can chat GPT or look and ask the question. I think it's a very, very important question. Being one of 435 members of Congress or 120 members in the state house or whatever is fine if you don't have a lot of leadership experience. But I wouldn't say being a member of Congress necessarily is, with a staff of whatever they have, 10 people. I don't know what it is. Have you run anything? And you have had positive results. What have you done in your time in office? Has your time in office been focused on solving people's problems or has it been like a lot of politicians, and you make your own decisions, serving themselves? Whether that's getting wealthy in your time in office, whether that's not showing up to vote in your time in office, whether that's just failing to get anything done while you've been in office. And if that's your track record as against someone who has shown up and, again, delivered over and over and over again on things that we've talked about tonight, do you want to turn over the state of Florida to somebody with that kind of record? And I appreciate that there's an endorsement there that before anybody else got in the race, but I don't believe the president would endorse Congressman Donalds with all the information in front of him. And I'll just leave it at that.
First of all, the comments and we're here and for the economic principles that are aligned with our own. So really appreciating at the year. I'm Patty, similar to the previous question here. We're curious, you mentioned your alignment with DeSantis. Would be curious to have me unpack a bit about your approach to education, but you mentioned affordability. What does that mean to you? Is it different from his, or is it state course in terms of your approach?
Are you referring to, ma'am, are you referring to K-12 or higher education or both? Okay, my pick. Real simply, my mom was a public school teacher. I was a public school kid throughout. However, and so I believe that the short answer is I believe that every kid, no matter where you are, should get a world-class education. Most of our kids go to public school. We have to make sure they're really strong and really good. I supported the governor, and to his credit, was the one driving that more than me. But we supported his drive to increase teacher salary. I'll continue to do that to take care of our public schools. We're going to make sure we take care of our public schools. But I also believe in charter schools and the flexibility they have. They're not unionized. They can hire and fire and get rid of a bad teacher that the public schools are not necessarily doing. And I also was the champion of HB1 my first year, which is universal school choice. And there have been bumps in the road. We fix bumps in the road. We don't take that because it's been enormously popular. I can't tell you how many parents have said you've changed our lives. It's about $8,000. The average student in a public school gets about $15,000 of taxpayer money, state, federal. Okay, so it's a good deal for taxpayers, and that allows you to homeschool your kid, send them to private school. But here's the thing, and many public schools have started to figure out it goes both ways. So if I'm a homeschool parent, I've never set foot in a public school, I can say, you know what, I'm not good at math, or I'm not good at chemistry or the equipment cost of that. I'm going to send my kid one day a week to a public school in Miami. You can do that. And now the public school is making money that they never made before on that homeschool kid. So I believe that just like every business has an entrance and an exit. And if you're doing a great job, more people hit the entrances than the exits. Public school has been a monopoly. It's been controlled by unions. It's been like the Hotel California where you can enter, but you can never leave. And so when you open up the exit door, that means, and it has happened since Jeb Bush's days, our public schools are way better when we started school choice, and we got a lot of great public schools. So we have to continue to do that, continue to lean into innovation. Freedom will have bumps along the way. There's this issue about, well, this money was over here. We didn't know where the students were. It's swirling around with legitimate concerns, but also people that don't like school choice, to be honest with you, that want to, there's a group of people in the unions that want to make sure that your kid has to go to their zip coded school no matter what, whether they serve you or fail you. I do not believe in that. And I will always stand for the freedom of parents to decide the school that best fits their needs. I think most parents do care about their kids, but you got to teach them to. We're going to have accountability. And so that's K-12. Academic freedom throughout. Teach reading, math, science, civics. I don't want conservative indoctrination. I don't think liberal we need to make sure we're teaching that. When 40-some% of students cannot read on grade level at the third grade, that is morally unacceptable. And so we'll get after that like a Manhattan Project to make sure we bring that down. We changed reading, got rid of sight reading and 3Qing, and to put in law that we have to teach the science of reading, because these, I'll say it, progressive ideas, well, this has always worked before, but let's try something new that we don't know if it's going to work, and it hasn't worked, to teach kids how to read. But how about we go back to what worked before? Little House on the Prairie, it worked. And so we're teaching kids phonics again in Florida. We'll lean into that, what works. Whatever works. I'm agnostic. I think as a conservative, it's not an ideology for me. It's what works. And I think free people, free markets, political freedom works, period. On higher ed, same thing. Teach Karl Marx, but teach Adam Smith. And then ask students what happens when those ideas are put into practice. And I told you what happens with socialism. Adam Smith, for all of our faults in our society and, people, the rich get richer and all the knocks on capitalism, it has brought more people out of poverty, it has led to more human thriving than any other system ever devised. And so let's be fair about it. If we need to make adjustments, we have in our society, we'll make adjustments to make sure that it's even, that everybody has a shot in life.
Continuing on the theme of comparison to other candidates, how do you ask your opinion on your thoughts on working bipartisan, the government, both legislature, deputy? I think Florida is a supermajority, so maybe your answer is it doesn't matter. No, but it doesn't matter. Can you give some examples of what you have worked bipartisan to choose some results?
Absolutely. So we have a supermajority, and what that means from a rule standpoint is we can waive any rule. We can tell the Democrats, you don't get to stand up, you don't get to talk. We're going to just pass it. I never, ever used it in 2 years as Speaker. Never used it. We had structured debate in questions. We worked with the Democrats to say, what's a fair time? Now, sometimes they say, we want 10 hours. Like, come on, guys. We looked at all the bills in the past, the most controversial radioactive ones, guns and abortion or what, things that make the news, which is like this much of our work in Tallahassee. And came up with something fair. So we did that. We never used the rules against them like that. But more importantly is, as a leader, I believe in bringing people together based on values. And so, for example, on our social media protections, it was a bipartisan issue. So I got people that were very conservative like me, but also a member that is on the very left end of the spectrum in the Democrat caucus who was a co-sponsor, did a great job. On kid care, and this is a more bipartisan issue, is I was hearing, because these poverty cliffs, as a conservative, I'm a conservative, but I believe in helping lift people out of poverty, is you have parents who are on Medicaid. It's the CHIP program, which takes you a little bit above where adults can get Medicaid. It's, I think, 200% of federal poverty. And they pay about $10, $20 a month for their kids to be on health insurance. Kids in poverty, that's what we're talking about. That's a safety net, in my opinion. We want a robust safety net for people but kids. It's not the kids' fault. If you make $1 extra, when you income out of that, you immediately go from $20 to $250. We had people coming in and saying, "Can I turn down a job promotion to get me off welfare and public assistance to keep my kids' health care?" We're not going to do that. So it was a priority of mine to work on having that. So you make a little bit more, it's $50. You make a little bit more, it's $100, and you work your way out of public assistance. So it's pro-family, pro-work, in my opinion, pro-conservative. They said, is this Medicaid expansion? No, I do not believe in a Medicaid expansion, because most of that population are childless, working age, non-disabled adults. That is not the safety net. That's free health care. That's health care as a right. I knock on your door and say, pay my health care. But for kids, we want to do that. And so that's something that I did work with Democrats on. The wildlife corridor, bipartisan. So I had many Democrats that were in a couple of cases that were priorities of mine that were co-sponsoring. Now, on issues where it's a conservative versus liberal issue, I'm a conservative. And I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to, lay up or compromise on things that are matters of principle. But where we can come together, I don't mind coming together. I think that's good for society. I think there's too much division. I do believe that. So temperamentally, I think I will be a person who speaks for civility. But on issues where it's a clash of philosophies, there's no tepid response on that. So thanks for calling me out. I don't think I'm tepid, but I won't be tepid on things when it comes to less government, more freedom on any of these issues that divide us.
Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions. Just want to give you, if you have any final comments before we close out.
No, I would ask everybody, do your due diligence. I'll end where I started. This is so important. Do not just throw up your hands and say, well, we've got our governor. And because this is too important. And I think most people do not want to step backwards. And with me, you will not. And I've given you all the reasons. I won't repeat them. Do your due diligence. If there is a fair comparison, not a complete comparison, we don't have to match dollar for dollar. We do have to raise more money, but we've raised $5.5 million in less than 4 months in the race, which is more this last quarter than every Democrat and Republican combined, except for Congressman Donalds. I believe it's a two-person race. It's me or him. as your next governor, and I would ask you to carefully look, and I know everybody in this room will, at the record of leadership, results, all the other things you would look at in a leader. And you judge for yourself. If there's a fair comparison, we win this race hands down. It'll be a privilege to serve as your governor. God bless you.